Hello everyone, my name is Tatiana. Today I have the honor to interview Allan Kotanen, who is a worker during many years in Trinity Western University. Welcome, Allan, and thank you for accepting this invitation.
Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Okay, to begin, I want to ask you about a little about your life history.
Okay. Yes. Well, thank you. I've lived in Canada all my life. I grew up in Ontario, which is kind of the middle province in Canada. So we have cold winters and lots of snow. And my hometown was Thunder Bay, Ontario. So I grew up there, stayed there, did my high school, and then I went to college in Winnipeg. And when I finished college, I was invited to come and take a position at Trinity Western. And so I did that. I was married just before I came out to Trinity Western, and that was in 1974. My wife Sylvia and I, we have 3 children, and we have 6 grandchildren, and we love that. So when I came to Trinity in 1974, there were 350 students, and I was in charge of student services at the time. For my whole time at Trinity, I worked in student life, and today Trinity has over 5,000 students, so it's grown significantly in the time that I've been here.
Okay, so nice. Okay, the second question is, could you share with us some difficult situation you have lived in? And also, what is your vision today of those difficulties, and how has it enriched your leadership?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tati, for someone to consider. I think too often people view difficulties as simply bad things, and I think God wants us to see the good that can come out of it. My parents have passed away now, and we had a very good home life. I grew up in a family business and learned a lot of things there, and was very grateful for my parents. But to see them get sick and then die, they both died within 3 months of each other, that was a hard time, but yet a time where I think God showed me some good things, and it was difficult, but it was a good learning time. I can remember times too in my career where certain things have happened, that changes that I didn't think were good, or changes that maybe even were unfair, but yet God was using them for my good. And I think that it's difficult sometimes in the midst of something that you don't view as comfortable or good to see the good in it. But I think eventually God can help you see how it can work together for good. And I'm always reminded of what the Bible says in the book of James, where James actually asks us to rejoice in difficulties. And he goes on to say that those difficulties help refine us, help us become better, make us more what God intends us to be. So even though I've had my share of difficulties, and I'm sure most leaders have, we don't have to view those difficulties as negative things. They can be things that we view as God's way of refining us, of making us better, stronger, more prepared for what is to come.
Nice, thank you so much. What do you consider are the core values to be a good leader?
When I think about values, the way I would define that is a value is an enduring belief that you have about things that are important. So for me, they're different than skills. A skill is, a leadership skill is communication, but a value is how you do what you do. So, for example, for me, I would say some of the key core values for me are number one, integrity. That as a leader, if you are not someone who is honest, if you are not someone people can trust, it's hard to become a good leader. You still might be, but it's more difficult. I think that when there's a context of trust, of honesty that exists, when people know you to be a person of integrity, it's a good step forward in your leadership having influence upon other people. So number one, I would say, is integrity. Number two, just very simply, is leaders need to be dependable. They need to be people who, when they say, I will do something or I will not do something, they follow through on their word. And that whether that's simply being reliable, whether it's being on time, whether it's getting something done that needs to get done, leaders can be counted on to be dependable, to get it done. The third thing I would say, and there's lots of things I think I could put on this list, but the third one I would say is it's important for leaders to be others focused. When a leader doesn't focus on other people, they're looking at themselves, they're looking at their priorities, they're looking at their own situation. When you look at other people, you're trying to create a strong team, you're trying to bring other people along. Your focus is on all of us being successful, not just on you in your field of leadership, but you want to see other people genuinely grow and become strong, become better because of the situation. So for me, I hope my life is guided by these principles of integrity, dependability, and being others focused. In summary, I would say, as a leader, it's more important to be concerned with who you are than what you do.
Definitely. Thank you, Alan. The next question is, what do you consider a person should avoid to be a good leader?
Well, again, I think of three things here that I think you will help yourself a lot if you avoid these things. And number one is pride. As a leader, you may often be in a situation where you receive the praise or you receive the recognition. And if you're not careful, that can create a problem. It can create jealousy in other people. But when you are able to be humble, when you don't let pride take hold in your life and begin to think, oh, I'm pretty good and I've really accomplished something here, and other people need to recognize that, that gets you into trouble. That's something to be avoided. So number one, avoid pride. Number two, I think leaders are people who should be positive. So my avoidance is avoid negativity. Okay, number one, avoid pride. Number two, avoid negativity. Train yourself to first think about a situation in terms of what can I do instead of what am I not able to do. So be positive. Think about, could we do this? Could we accomplish this? How could we do it? Versus what are the negative things that stand in the way? Kind of jokingly, sometimes I say, I want to be a person who's known for living in Canada, not Canada. So think about being positive, that you can do something, not think of all the reasons why you can't. So don't be proud, don't be negative. And the third thing is, don't be selfish. Again, I think life will be enjoyed more as a leader when you bring others along with you, when you share with them, when you let them experience the positives that come from accomplishment, when you recognize other people. If you keep it to yourself, even when maybe you did the most of the work, that's not the best. I don't recommend that. Don't let selfishness, pride, or negativity get into your leadership.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So useful tips. The next question is, who has been an inspiration to develop your leadership and why?
Um, I can think of three specific examples very quickly, and there's been a lot in my life of people who have had influence. But I would say, number one, when I was in college, I was involved in student leadership and got connected with a lot of other student leaders. And there was one family that lived near the college, not real close, but we would go and visit them. And they would always welcome us into their home. They would serve us great meals, and we would laugh and play games and have a lot of fun. But the very fact that they were welcoming, that they were hospitable, that they cared about us, they had an influence on my life. And I think from that day forward, I wanted to be someone who modeled that, who had people in our home, and I could see the value of people finding friendship, finding comfort, finding safety in a place where they feel welcome. So number one was that family that took me in when I was a college student. The next person that I want to mention is, I had an uncle who was, he was a welder, very uneducated. He didn't have much schooling at all. But I remember him challenging me as a younger person to get involved, to do things. He encouraged me to, whenever I could, be involved in public speaking. It would be in the church, it would be leading a group, it would be teaching Sunday school. And I guess he saw some potential in me, and he said, you need to do that. And he would nudge me towards those kinds of things and give me opportunities that a lot of the other people just didn't have. And so I'm grateful for that uncle who, although he himself was not recognized as a leader, he still practiced good leadership development, and that was encouraging for me. So that was my uncle.
So beautiful. In this point, I want to ask you, people without experience can teach us too?
Yes. I think we'll be surprised sometimes when we look back on our life and realize where we have learned some of the most important things. And they come from, often, I think God uses people who are not very important, not very recognized, but they say some of the most important things to us. So keep your ears and eyes open for those opportunities. The third individual that I want to mention is Trinity Western had a president who served for 32 years, from 1974 when I came until 2006. And his name was Neil Snyder. And he was one who I believe saw potential in me and gave me opportunity, and I think even stood up for me at times when maybe other people would have questioned, am I old enough? Am I wise enough? Am I whatever? And he trusted in me and gave me opportunity, and that encouraged me to really want to do things well. And so he's another one who had influence in my life.
Okay, awesome. The next question is, do you consider yourself a leadership graduate? Why yes or why no?
Yeah. No, I am not a leadership graduate. I have quite a bit of experience in leadership, but I believe that we are always learning about leadership. There's always more to do. There's always more to improve on. So I don't believe I will ever get to that point where I can say, well, I'm a leadership graduate. No, I have leadership experience. I can lead groups. I can talk about it, but I want to have the attitude, until I leave this earth, I am looking for ways to improve, to have more influence, to help other people grow in their leadership. So I am not a graduate yet.
Definitely. Okay, thank you so much. Could you share with us any leadership experience that has touched your life?
Yeah, once again, Taddy, there's a lot of examples that I could probably use. Uh, but when you ask this question, there is one individual who stands out in my mind because of um, the depth of character that I believe he has. This is an individual who was my supervisor for many years when I was fairly new to Trinity. And I remember a situation where he was in a meeting with most of the staff and faculty at the university at the time, which wasn't a huge group, but there was an individual who was being fairly critical of this person that I'm talking about. And the grace and the poise and the patience that this person exhibited in front of a group where he was being criticized and being told that he was wrong and saying things that really weren't true in my mind, but he was getting criticized. He was very calm. He was able to say, that I hear what you're saying, but in what you're saying, there's other factors, and he was very, very gracious in what he did. I can remember at the time thinking, like, boy, I would not have that grace if I was the one standing up. And so it taught me the lesson that there are times in life where you may need to accept criticism, and even if it's not true, God will help you gain from that, and that the example that you set through that will be remembered far more than the criticism that may have been levied at that time. So I will always remember that example that was set for me.
Okay, thank you so much. To conclude, Allan, what would you recommend to students and people watching this video for leadership development?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to in a few minutes state, well, here are the best things to do. But I'll share two things that I think apply. I think to anyone who wants to be serious about leadership development. And the first one, I make no apology. I say, learn all you can about servant leadership and practice it. I think that the model of servant leadership is one that will be successful in most instances. But you need to learn what it is. You need to learn how to implement it, how to be a servant leader yourself, how to help other people understand it. But learn servant leadership and learn how to practice it. That would be my first point. And the second one is very simply this. Discover what your strengths and your weaknesses are. We all have strengths. We all are good at some things. We all have a passion for certain things and can get excited about things. We all have things that we're not that good at, we're not that capable of. And my advice in this regard is, number one, find out what those things are, and with your strengths, do as much as you can to develop those. Spend your time on your strengths and use those to the full. With your weaknesses, learn how to manage them. But don't spend most of your time improving your weaknesses. I would say surround yourself with people who can fill those gaps so you don't have to fill it yourself. But use the strengths that you have to be strong in the areas where you are gifted and manage those areas that are not as strong. That's what I would recommend.
Thank you, Allan. I really appreciate your time. Thank you again for spend your time with us, for explaining us about your experience and about these tips. I take notes for the values, integrity, dependently, and be other focus, and avoid three keys to prove negative, and selfish. I am correct?
You are correct.
Okay, thank you so much. This is so useful for us. Actually, I agree with you about the leadership develop, improve every day. Never graduate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tati.
Thank you for all people that watching this video, and see you next time.